because of that. But then looking also at Taylor Swift's resources, I mean, if she wanted to fight it, she probably could.
She says for Swift, though, there's an element of honor and public image here. She doesn't want to be seen as an artist who ripped off somebody else's work, so that could motivate her to take this the distance. In Austin, I'm Andy Euler for Marketplace.
And I'm David Brancaccio in New York. You're listening to the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect with Melissa Ross. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
North Florida TPO, proud sponsor of WJCT's First Coast Connect, bringing to the community innovation in transportation planning, commuter services, clean fuels, and intelligent transportation systems. More at northfloridatpo.com.
Wayne Hogan of the Terrell Hogan Personal Injury and Wrongful Death Law Firm. When people are hurt through no fault of their own, answering who, what, when, where, why, and how is critical to proving the truth. More at terrellhogan.com.
On the next Radio Lab,
one of, if not the biggest, butterfly poaching and smuggling rings in American history.
One man's journey to save a tiny little butterfly.
Urban Meyer is out as Jaguars head coach. I'm Melissa Ross, and just ahead this hour on First Coast Connect, Meyer is fired following a string of controversies, the latest on that, plus why the local gas tax is staying put. Then later.
We really have been able to tap onto experts from all over the nation, and we're really excited to be able to present that.
What's health got to do with it? A conversation with our new talk show host, Dr. Joseph Servin of Mayo Clinic, and comedian Lewis Black. All of that and more just ahead. After the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. In Kentucky, the search continues for more than 100 people still unaccounted for nearly a week after deadly tornadoes hit. An effort is also underway to provide Christmas comfort to children displaced by the storm. NPR's Brian Mann reports.
This storm hit children hard, leaving 12 dead, 7 on one street in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Many more have seen their homes destroyed or severely damaged ahead of the holidays. Addison Taylor, who's 14, is living in a hotel with his parents.
The wind just came through the house. It was very scary. There's not really words that you can put to say about it.
Toy and gift drives are underway across Kentucky to replace Christmas presents destroyed by the tornadoes. One of the largest is being led by Kentucky First Lady Brittany Bashir, who spoke yesterday.
As of this morning, we think that we have around 20,000 gifts donated, and we've got 3 more days to go.
In parts of Kentucky, families displaced by the storm are living in campgrounds and shelters. Brian Mann, NPR News, Dawson Springs, Kentucky.
The National Weather Service warns that powerful winds that gusted through the central U.S. on Wednesday are blowing into the Great Lakes region today. Hurricane-strength gusts hammered areas from Colorado to Iowa, starting fires and forcing schools to close. Forecasters say wind gusts could reach up to 60 miles per hour today, as far north as Michigan's Upper Peninsula. A grand jury investigating the collapse of a high-rise building in Surfside is calling for Florida to rewrite its condo regulations. NPR's Greg Allen reports that the grand jury is recommending that officials inspect condo buildings every 10 years.
98 people died when an entire section of a condo tower collapsed in Surfside. A grand jury in Miami-Dade County says it will leave the question of why it collapsed to federal investigators and others. Instead, it's issued a report with recommendations to better ensure the buildings are designed, constructed, and maintained properly. It says the state legislature should remove a waiver provision from the condominium law and require condo boards to maintain reserve funds adequate for building repairs. It also recommends that instead of requiring recertification of a building's structural soundness 40 years after construction, inspections should begin much earlier and be done every 10 years. Greg Allen, NPR News, Miami.
The top health official in the United Kingdom says the Omicron variant of the coronavirus could become the dominant strain in the UK. Willem Marks reports from London on the official's assessment given to British lawmakers.
The head of the UK's Health Security Agency, Dr. Jenny Harris, told a parliamentary committee the greatest unknown is the correlation between high Omicron case counts and hospitalisations and deaths. Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged caution in a televised address Wednesday night, and though he's not closed hospitality venues yet, bars and restaurant businesses are demanding government support after a sharp fall in bookings.
Willem Marks reporting from London. This is NPR News.
The time is now 9:04. This is WJCT News 89.9. Traffic alert this morning on I-95 northbound. An accident there near State Road 16 has all lanes blocked there. That's I-95 going north near State Road 16. Detectives in Central Florida are teaming up with a forensic anthropologist from the University of South Florida to try and solve cold cases that go back decades. Matthew Petty reports a cold case working group is up and running again.
USF forensic anthropologist Dr. Erin Kimmerly started the Left for Dead project in 2015 to try and help solve murders of women whose bodies were found in Central Florida between 1970 and 1990. Kimmerly says there are as many as 15,000 unsolved homicides in Florida. Her team narrowed down the cases to about 200 missing women in Central Florida, 80 unsolved homicides, and 35 unidentified women.
So we like a challenge. We picked cases that are the toughest to solve in a certain way, but because of that, they fall to the bottom of the queue, right? They tend to get the least amount of attention. Some haven't been looked at in decades.
Kimmerly says the project shut down during the pandemic, but restarted last fall, working with cold case units at law enforcement agencies in Orange and Hillsborough counties. Scientists at the USF lab are using chemical tests on bones and facial reconstruction to try and figure out the identity of the victims. She says the team will work through the list in the coming days to prioritise which cases to start with. I'm Matthew Petty in Orlando.
And it's cloudy in Jacksonville now, 67 degrees. We'll reach 78 for this afternoon, mostly sunny. Dense fog overnight with a low of 61 degrees.
For NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Novo Nordisk, working to improve the lives of people with obesity through knowledge, science, and compassion. Because obesity is a matter of biology, not just willpower. More at truthaboutweight.com.
Urban Meyer is out as Jaguars head coach. Good morning. We're live from Studio 5. I'm Melissa Ross. Thanks for listening to First Coast Connect this morning. And just ahead this hour, Meyer's firing comes after a losing season and a heap of controversies. We're going to get you up to date. Give us a call, 549-2937. Also ahead this hour, why the gas tax is staying put in Jacksonville despite some calls to bring it back down. Plus, comedian Lewis Black on his performance coming up at the Florida Theater. That and more all ahead. But first this hour, Jaguars coach Urban Meyer was fired late last night. Now, this followed allegations from former player Josh Lambo that Urban kicked him, attacked him, assaulted him physically during warm-ups. WJCT sports analyst Josh Torres had a late night, but he's up now to tell us exactly what went on at TIAA Bank Field. Hi, Josh.
Hey there, Melissa. Yeah, it was a very late night for just about every single sports reporter.
Absolutely. So this is making news across the country. Was this the last straw, this allegation from former kicker Josh Lambo that Urban Meyer assaulted him essentially during practice?
Yeah, Melissa, it really was. I mean, this was released yesterday afternoon by the Tampa Bay Times. In an interview, Josh Lambo essentially said that after the first two preseason games, they were stretching before practice when Meyer came up to him, used some very choice words to essentially tell him to start making kicks, and then delivered his own swift kick to Josh Lambo. And yeah, this just really rocked everybody because this has been a tumultuous season for Urban Meyer. I mean, we started off with him hiring a strength and conditioning coach who had been accused at the University of Iowa of racist behavior. Then we move on to the off-season where he violated off-season training rules. Then we get to October with the viral video with him and a woman who was not his wife at the Ohio bar after the loss of the Cincinnati Bengals, all the way up to this past Saturday where he was accused of getting into verbal arguments with receiver Marvin Jones Jr. and essentially yelling at all of his assistant coaches. And this has just been, as Jags fans will tell you, a very long time coming. And as weird as it might say, but based off of what I've seen on Twitter this morning, TIAA Bank Field is going to be absolutely rocking this Sunday with the fact that they know that he is gone.
You know, Shad Khan put out a statement this morning saying, and I quote, Darrell Bevell will serve as interim head coach of the Jaguars for the rest of the season. After deliberation over many weeks and a thorough analysis of Urban's tenure with the team, I'm disappointed to make this change. I informed Urban of the change, and as I stated in October, regaining trust and respect was essential. Regrettably, it did not happen. What about the critics of Khan's management that he should have pulled the plug on Meyer earlier? Was this allegation from Josh Lambo the last straw, or does this give Khan maybe cover to not pay out Urban Meyer as much as he would have had to ordinarily?
Melissa, I think it's definitely a little column A, a little column B. I think it definitely, this was the past week again with Saturday's report coming out about the arguments with players and that he has completely lost the locker room, and then this followed up by this to go along with the 20-0 loss against the Tennessee Titans on Sunday. It was the final straw. I mean, when this came out, he was never going to see the end of the season.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one thing to get into arguments with players. It happens all the time. We've all seen the show Hard Knocks on HBO, where you'll see players and coaches getting into it, players and players getting into it. But the fact that he went up to another one of his players, and whether or not it was a swift little love tap or not, you don't do that. Like you don't go up to one of your players and literally kick him. And it was definitely just the final straw. And the one question a lot of people are wondering is, when is this the first time this has happened? Miami Dolphins player Jerome Baker Jr., who used to play for Urban Meyer when he was at Ohio State, tweeted out after the article came out, and I'm quoting this, "I'm not surprised. Karma is catching up." So seems like this is not the first time that this has happened, and it kind of makes you wonder how long has this kind of behavior been going on, and whether or not truly the Jaguars did their homework before hiring him.
Right. This is certainly a move that critics of the team's management and performance can continue to question. But, Josh, now with him out, there will be another search for a head coach and a lot of pressure to make a better choice next season.
Absolutely, and I will go ahead and say the Jags fans have already made their voice known as to who they want as their head coach. As I spoke about with you on Monday, their choice is Byron Leftwich, former Jags quarterback, doing a fantastic job down in Tampa, who I said on Monday, head coach in Tampa, Bruce Arians, said he would not have come to Tampa if Byron Leftwich wasn't also going to be there. That is the person that they want. And, even if he decides not to come to Jacksonville, Shad Khan's got to at least go after him and see if he can convince him to come down. Hey, we have Trevor Lawrence. We have this kid who's clearly going to be our future, and we want you to help us turn the ship around and get him onto the track that we think he can be on. And doing, at the very least, going after him will really get at least fans back on his side, because right now fans are not on his side, and the team needs to do something to try and get the fans back. Firing Urban Meyer was the first step. Now, after the season's over, they just need to get through the last 4 games. Hopefully show, we might see some improvement now that apparently the coach that they did not like is gone, and he's got to do something to get them back.
Yeah, of course, Byron Leftwich was really beloved by the fans when he played for Jacksonville. He also would be the first non-white coach of this team.
Yes, absolutely. And that is one thing a lot of people want to see is, really just bring in a lot of different coaches. That's one of the criticisms throughout the NFL is that there are not enough African American coaches, despite the fact that there are several, I would say more than several, qualified African American head coaches. But that is definitely the name that Jags fans in particular and quite a few other people have thrown around as being a potential candidate just for the fact that he is a rising star in the coaching community. There have been a couple other names thrown around: New England Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels, Todd Bowles, who was the former head coach of, I believe it was the New York Jets, are some of the names that we've seen kind of getting thrown around. Kellen Moore down in Dallas. So yeah, Shad Khan's really, really got to do his homework this time, Melissa. He's really, really got to think hard and long about who he wants to bring in. And, he might want to listen to the fans and kind of see what they want.
Lots of tweets. Here's one from singer Brinson. I never thought Urban was a good fit. It's a big difference between coaching kids who are on scholarship versus men who are millionaires. A tweet from Wonkette. If Mr. Meyer was my employee, he would have been fired weeks ago. A tweet from Peter. Our short regional nightmare is over. Okay. Thanks for the tweets, folks. And thank you, Josh Torres. Get back to sleep, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Melissa.
Let's shift gears now. The other big story of the morning. Earlier this week, the Jacksonville City Council rejected a move by Council Member Leanna Cumber, expected to run for mayor, by the way, to repeal the 6-cent increase and extension of the local gas tax. It takes effect January 1st. Mike Mendenhall has been covering this story for the Jax Daily Record, and he's on the line now. Hey, Mike.
Hey, good morning, Melissa.
Good to talk to you. Okay, folks, we're talking gas prices now. The local gas tax in Duval County is going to stay. It takes effect January 1st. It's 6 cents a gallon. You will be paying it despite a move on the council to do away with it. 549-2937. Let us know your thoughts about gas prices and how your household budget is going at the holidays. 549-2937. So, Mike, there was a move by Leanna Cumber, who is already raising a lot of money to run for mayor, I should point out, to repeal this gas tax. What was her rationale?
So, Leanna Cumber filed this bill shortly after Governor Ron DeSantis asked the state legislature to suspend the statewide gas tax for a period of about 6 months once the session gets started. So, and her thought process is that, that right now with rising prices, rising consumer good costs, at the time gas prices were rising, that this gas tax was going to be too much of a burden on people in Duval County, and just add another cost to their monthly bill. She also argued against the gas tax when it was first passed in May, that it's a regressive tax. And she also didn't care for some of the projects. Well, actually, one of the big projects the gas tax will fund, which is the expansion and modernization of the Skyway. Right. Okay. So in the end, though, this really didn't draw even close to majority support. The council voted the idea down 13-5. Council members Rory Diamond, Danny Becton, Randy DeFore, Al Ferraro, and Cumber were the only ones voting to repeal the tax. Yeah, that's right, Melissa. And those are the same people that voted against the gas tax when it originally passed in May. So there really was no movement on this. And another thing too that Cumber argued is that right now Duval County and the state of Florida are seeing kind of an influx in federal dollars coming in from the American Rescue Plan, as well as what will be coming in through President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill, which Florida is expected to get more than about $13 billion from that. She's arguing that these projects that the gas tax is slated to fund could be funded from those dollars. Now, of course, opponents to that were saying, well, this gas tax is a dedicated funding source.
eliminate or repealing that gas tax would force delays in getting these projects off the ground. And also, there wouldn't be 100% chance that they'd be able to get the money for all of these individual projects. And altogether, it's about $930 million in road and transportation projects countywide.
Yeah, this money that you pay at the pump, folks, it'll help fund the 30-mile Emerald Trail, the Green Beltway that's envisioned to go all around the city. As Mike said, the Skyway, a host of road and drainage and infrastructure projects. Mayor Lenny Curry, the late Council President Tommy Hazouri, and JTA successfully pushed this tax increase through earlier this year. And now, as we mentioned, you don't have to pay it over Christmas. You start paying it January 1st, 5492937. Let us know your thoughts. Now, Leanna Cumber filed her bill, as you report, Mike, just a few days after Governor DeSantis announced a plan to ask the legislature for $1 billion in statewide gas tax relief to lower gas costs. Leanna Cumber is arguing the tax is regressive and that the city could fund projects from the federal infrastructure bill that President Biden successfully got signed into law last month. Gas prices are going down, though, a little bit, though, aren't they? Haven't they fallen?
They have actually. They've AAA, which follows gas prices so closely. They say this is it's seasonal. This drop in gas prices is typical. This time of year. But there are a lot of different factors. In what causes gas prices to increase. Right now the argument that Councilmember Cumber made and a lot of other people are making is that inflationary pressures caused by a very hot economy is causing gas prices to go up. But there's also factors that are outside of any type of control here in the United States. The OPEC nations, which control a lot of the world's supply and oil production capacity. As if prices continue to dip, they could come in and cut production, which would increase prices again. So there's a lot of different factors, that can weigh into this. But as of right now, gas prices have been slowly ticking down.
Now, on Tuesday, Councilmember Leanna Cumber tweeted out, "Raise your hand if you want higher taxes for Christmas," as part of her push to get the gas tax repealed. Man, did she take a beating on Twitter. People have been very critical of this move. Here are just a few tweets. "I'm happy," says Liz, "to pay $58 extra a year to help generate money to repair infrastructure across the city and fix drainage issues and improve our city's walkability." Here is a tweet from David Miller of the advocacy group Our Jacks and chairman of Brightway Insurance. "This was a disappointing political stunt. You can't support bad spending on Lot J and then months later pretend to be the anti-tax warrior." So what about that? The criticism that she and others are taking for saying that they want to roll back the gas tax while at the same time approving hundreds of $millions in incentives, Mike, for developments around the sports complex.
That was there were a lot of folks out there calling out what they felt was hypocrisy in her statements. First off, like you mentioned at the outset, the gas tax won't actually take effect until January 1st, which is after Christmas. So as far as impacting people's pocketbooks before December 25th, that's not quite accurate. But then also too, like you mentioned that she was one of the supporters of the incentive deal for Lot J, which was almost $245 million in incentives. Some of it was property tax breaks, as well as a controversial $65 million bread box loan, which would have which also would have cost the city. So people did definitely note that, and then the other thing too that the bill does, and Matt Carlucci alluded to it during the debate on Tuesday night, was that one of the things this does is it kind of relieves some strain on the general fund in order to put more money toward septic tank removal in Duval County. Our aging septic tank system is something that that the government officials have been promising to take care of for decades. And when the gas tax was originally passed, there was a companion bill for $100 million to put $100 million more into the city's septic tank phase out program. So those were kind of passed together, and that was really spearheaded by the late Council President Tommy Hazouri, as well as Mayor Lenny Curry. They kind of partnered on that, and it was kind of their last kind of big campaign push, together before Mr. Hazouri's passing.
Here's a tweet from Lee. Most people see this move by Leanna Cumber as the posturing that it was. #theater. Leanna Cumber is widely expected to run for Jacksonville mayor, Mike. She has already raised a hefty fundraising war chest. The other Republican on the city council, Matt Carlucci, who was running, has dropped out. So looking at this push by Councilmember Cumber through that lens, has this helped or hurt her, or does it make a difference at all when it comes to her political aspirations?
I guess that probably depends on who you ask. And she definitely likes to or positions herself as a fiscal watchdog or tax hawk on council. So if you're looking at her base of voters who are very likely fiscally conservative as well, this could possibly be a campaign talking point, saying that I tried to reduce your tax burden at the pump. But like the tweets were suggesting, there's a lot of folks out there, a lot of people, who are in positions of prominence and authority in this community who campaigned for the gas tax. Jack's Chamber is another example of that, and Daniel Davis, who's also widely expected to be running for mayor, and will be Cumber will be a challenger to him. Jack's Chamber supported the gas tax, but at the same time, Davis was also visible out supporting Governor DeSantis' move to temporarily repeal the statewide gas tax. So there's a lot of politics at play here with this gas tax moving forward. And it's also should be noted too that Councilmember Garrett Dennis has filed a bill that would also temporarily suspend the local option gas tax here, kind of in line with what the state is doing. So, however many months the state decides to suspend its gas tax, if his bill was passed, the city would do the same. And that so this debate on the gas tax is actually going to go into the new year.
We'll follow it. In the meantime, what else happened at the council meeting Tuesday night that all of us, the voters, should know about, Mike?
Well, one thing that I've been following is actually there's an electric vehicle manufacturer that's going to be coming to Jacksonville. They're going to be establishing their first U.S.-based manufacturing plant here. Now, it's not Tesla. It's not not like a flashy electric sports car. But what this is a logistics company that makes last mile delivery vehicles. So if there's a distributor based in Jacksonville that's getting products to market to people's homes, they'll be that's what these cars do is it's a company called Centra Automotive. They're based out of New Jersey, but they're global, and this will be their 7th manufacturing plant. So the city council, what they did was they passed a relatively modest tax break compared to some of the other incentive deals that they passed, about $450,000 tax break over I believe it was 20 years. To kind of incentivize this company to establish here at their manufacturing plant here in Jacksonville.
Stephanie emails the show. We have some of the lowest tax rates in the world, and it shows. Crumbling infrastructure, poor health care, and child care. The reality is we get what we pay for. So, Mike, we are a low-tax county and a low-tax state. The mayor and his allies pushed this gas tax through as a way to pay for badly needed projects because, let's be clear, the political will on their part probably wasn't there to raise taxes in any other way to keep this city on pace in the 21st century and take care of some obvious needs.
Yeah, I mean, and the list of projects that that are going to be supported by this, they were already in the city's long term multi-year budget. But really, I mean, but without additional revenue coming in, it could have taken years to even get these projects to the planning stage. So what this does is it gives the city a new revenue source to borrow money against, so they can advance some of these projects and get them done more quickly. Now, the folks that were arguing for Cumber's bill, said that, well, now we've got all this federal money coming in, we should use some of that cash. But the kind of the flip side of that is well, now the city could possibly do do twice as much or even more with those federal dollars that are coming in, as opposed to just doing what was planned for the gas tax.
It's always great to get your insights. Reporter Mike Mendenhall at our partner, the Jax Daily Record. Have a great holiday, Mike.
You too, Melissa. Thank you.
Much more still ahead. Later, a conversation with comedian Lewis Black as he visits the Florida Theater. We'll have a preview of that show. But up next.
We really have been able to tap onto experts from all over the nation, and we're really excited to be able to present that.
Dr. Joseph Servin on our brand new medical show, What's Health Got to Do with It? Special holiday shows and what's ahead for next year. That's next. We'll be right back. Well, it's your questions about the healthcare system answered. We're getting so much great feedback about our brand new medical show, What's Health Got to Do with It? You can listen to it every Saturday at 4 o'clock on 89.9. And there's so much planned for the new year with this program, along with some special holiday shows you won't want to miss. I spoke about it all with our host, Dr. Joseph Servin. Dr. Joe Servin, it's so good to talk to you. Happy holidays. Thanks for being with us.
Happy holidays, Melissa. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
And it's been a pleasure to listen to your new show, which we're so excited to present here at WJCT Public Media. What's Health Got to Do with It? Every Saturday at 4 on 89.9. You have two special holiday editions coming up with some really exciting guests and information. What's on tap?
You bet. So the first one is on actually Christmas Day, because the show fell on that Saturday. And so we're doing a best of our holiday health book picks. Each of our staff members helped to pick a book related to health of authors we've spoken to over the past several months. And we're excited to kind of give you some very special guests, if you will, from these authors that are going to be presenting that day.
And so this is a way that people can, as they're driving around or they're listening to us on their holiday,
really get a sense of you as a Mayo physician interviewing some of the top health experts, not just in our area, but in the country.
Yeah, that's one of the nice things is that we really have been able to tap onto experts from all over the nation, and we're really excited to be able to present that.
Okay, so what are the big health trends that you're going to be talking about in 2022?
So, okay, I'd be remiss if I don't bring up what's going on in COVID. And I know everyone is sick and tired of talking about COVID, but the reality is it's still very much amongst us at this time. And so the trends are like, what treatments? Where are we going with vaccines? Some of this will outlive COVID for decades to come in terms of how we approach it. So that's one of those items that we'll definitely be looking at. The other things are kind of some of the ramifications that have come about because of COVID that are good things. The rise of telehealth, more nurse practitioners, more physician assistants seeing individuals. The excitement with what's going on in terms of cancer and certain therapies that are happening in that direction, and other things that may not be getting a lot of discussion right now because we're so focused on pandemic issues.
Right. It's sort of crowded out so many other pressing health issues. Now, I know something else you're going to be focusing on What's Health Got to Do with It, the new push for diversity and inclusion in medicine. So what will we be hearing about you in 2022 on that front?
There's so many aspects to that issue. One thing I could just simply state is that a focus on where does not just a white man, which has been the focus of health and diversity for decades, but where do ethnicities, races, genders fit in terms of research, in terms of more people that are seeing patients, representing those faces, and knowing that there's a difference. That's actually one of the silver linings of this whole deal has been that push. So we expect to see a lot more coverage in that area because everyone's focusing on it right now.
Right. I mean, in the past, major research studies, they tended to use the male body, and especially the white male body, as the default. And so women and other groups of people got left out of all that, what could be life-saving research.
Exactly. And that applies to every specialty in medicine. So I think that's one of the exciting aspects that when we get our guests, they keep telling us about what's new in this area. And we're going to make sure that we kind of bring that on to all of our listeners that are out there for our show.
Now, Dr. Joe, do you feel that telemedicine is here to stay? You know, in this pandemic, I've done telehealth appointments. My kids have done them, and they're so much more convenient. For example, my youngest, I did a telehealth appointment with her last week, and I was so relieved that I could just get her home from school and click Zoom, and she was talking to a doctor. It feels to me like that is here to stay.
I think that is definitely here to stay. I can tell you on the doctor end, we love it too. It has a nice convenience. It has the ability to access everything. So I truly believe it's here to stay. Now, our insurance companies and laws have to kind of follow with us, but I think people have heard us and people are beginning to understand that this is definitely a positive trend.
And you'll be covering medical trends every week on What's Health Got to Do with It. As I mentioned, it's every Saturday at 4 on 89.9 FM. You can stream and podcast the show, too. What's been the biggest surprise for you as you've segued into this brave new world of becoming a talk show host?
I think what I have learned, especially from our listener questions, is the varying possibilities of how people view medicine and taking matters into their own hands. So one of the things that I always joke with the team overall is that I feel like I'm back in med school when I'm listening to people's questions. And I think that there's no shortage of answers when it comes to it. And I think that if anyone tunes in, which we want everyone to, is that they'll pick up on, hey, that's me. That's my problem. And I think that that's one of the things that we love talking through.
Dr. Joseph Servin, it's such a pleasure to have you part of our team here at WJCT. So listen to Dr. Joe, special shows. He hates it when I call him that. Special shows on Christmas and New Year's Day. What's Health Got to Do with It airs every Saturday at 4 on 89.9 here at WJCT News. Have a great holiday, Dr. Servin. Joe, I know you want me to call you Joe.
I'll get used to it eventually.
Melissa, happy holidays to you. And any name you want to call me, I'll take.
And happy birthday to Dr. Joseph Servin. Enjoy the day, Joe. Well, the Lincolnville Museum and Cultural Center recently had to raise its air conditioning units up 18 inches to protect them from floods. Like many sites in the historically black Lincolnville neighborhood of St. Augustine, the museum is coping with more frequent and intense flooding as seas rise and hotter temperatures drive heavier storms. With more on this, we welcome our own reporter, Brendan Rivers, who writes at our digital climate change magazine, Adapt Florida. Hey, Brendan.
Good morning, Melissa.
Brendan got reporting help on this from News4JAX meteorologist Danielle Uliano, and she's on the line too. Hey, Danielle. Oh, I forgot to press a button. Hey, Danielle, how are you?
Good. Good morning.
I'll get it together. Okay, so let's begin with you, Brendan. Rising seas are swamping Black, Spanish, and Indigenous history in St. Johns County. Bring us down to the level of what's happening at this particular point that you focus on in this news story at Adapt Florida, the Lincolnville Museum.
Yeah, so Lincolnville is a historically black neighborhood in downtown St. Augustine, and it and a lot of other areas in and around St. Augustine are really facing a serious threat from sea level rise and flooding. This flooding is happening on an almost monthly basis now during what's referred to as sunny day flooding, and that's just basically days when we get extra high tides and the water just kind of comes up through the drainage system and starts flooding the streets, and it can overtop the seawalls and stuff there and get into the roads. And it threatens a lot of historic resources in that area. And St. Johns County and specifically St. Augustine are really dependent on those historic sites and resources for the local economy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, centuries old Spanish architecture, modern black history, millions of dollars in the county's tourism economy is at risk. Can you share a little bit about their concerns?
Yeah, I mean, so the city of St. Augustine, for example, only has about 15,000 residents, but they have millions of people coming there every year to visit historic sites and to experience the region's rich history. And every time it floods, it makes it harder for people to visit these sites, which means it's less money in the local economy. It's less jobs. And it's even worse when there are things like hurricanes, which could shut down the city for days and potentially damage or destroy some of these places. The Castillo de San Marcos is one of the places we looked at. And it is made of coquina, which is this soft porous limestone that's made of compressed shell. And so that coquina was actually really useful for the fort when it was built in the 17th century, because when it was hit by cannon fire, the coquina would kind of act like a cheese. And, you know, when you stab cheese, the knife just kind of goes into the cheese and the cheese separates. It's the same thing when a cannon hits it. But that coquina is also extremely absorbent. So when water comes in contact with it, it absorbs that water. And as seas rise and flooding becomes more common, water is getting into the dry moat around the coquina or around the Castillo, And when that water just kind of sits there, the coquina absorbs the water, and over time, that can really compromise the integrity of the structure. And that's something that they're looking at there. So they're trying to find against that, and they're also looking into these digital strategies so that they can take all these 3D images of the fort to preserve all these different aspects of it for future generations, even if it is lost to the sea in the next century or so.
Danielle Uliano, meteorologist at News4JAX, you collaborated on this story at ADAPT Florida. And as Brendan said, whether it's historic Lincolnville or any other coastal area in Florida, we're going to be fighting a losing battle with rising waters, trying to preserve historic sites, trying to preserve homes and businesses. But in the end, some areas are going to have to make very tough decisions and look at things like managed retreat and just accept that some important sites may be lost. How do you, in your capacity as a meteorologist, see this as you try to educate people about the growing impacts of severe weather in Florida?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the waters have been, sea level in general steadily has been rising over centuries. It's nothing new. It's nothing crazy or anything. It's very slow, but it's steady. So it's not something we're necessarily going to see next year or in the next 5 years or maybe in my lifetime. But what we are is trying to educate the community and families, because this is for generations to come, our children, our children's children. Will they be able to experience these great things? Not only with just the sea levels rising, but also the water temperatures getting warmer. We talk about this with hurricane seasons, more intense storms, which can also impact the Florida coastline. With warmer waters, you get more storms in general. We get more heavier downpours. And that, a heavy downpour in St. Augustine really floods the streets very easily. And the city themselves are used to that. But again, it impacts the economy because it floods those streets and those parking lots. It doesn't allow the tourists to come in, and they can't make that money. So all of that really comes into it. Also in the Lincolnville area, what a lot of people talk about is there's very little green space in that neighborhood, meaning when the water gets there, it has nowhere to go. It can't go and absorb into the ground, into the grassy parks, into all that. It's all paved or concrete, or it's a lot of homes. It's a historical neighborhood. So when you get that flooding, you have a little green space, and you continue to build on a city that has over 2,500 historical sites. There's almost one on every single corner you look. You may not know it, but it's there. And this is what makes money for the city. They were talking about the fort, the Castillo. Again, in the next 50 plus years, what's going to happen? Is water going to fill the moat? Are they going to have to get to it by boat? You look a little further south at the Matanzas fort, and you have to get to that fort by ferry right now. So they were kind of using that as an example because it's made by the same material. So that's why we were looking into all of these historic sites specifically, because a lot of buildings are made out of that coquina limestone. Over at the Ponce de Leon Hotel there, it's also made out of the same structure. Also, that building they were mentioning has the builders made a basement in that building. We don't see a lot of basements in Florida, especially when you're that close to sea level.
Sure.
So they say that they have issues with that too, because the water is rising, even the water table, and when it floods very easily. So these are the continuous problems that they're seeing over and over again.
Now, Danielle, you and Brendan collaborated with some data from our friends over at Climate Central. And you mentioned mid-century. That's sort of the target we need to keep in our minds. It could be even sooner, though, when we talk about waters routinely swamping these historic sites and other points of interest around our community. Is that right?
I mean, some people think it's flooded before, what's the problem? Yes, it probably has flooded multiple times before, but now it's flooding more frequently, and it's going to continue to flood more frequently. So I think that's something that we need to kind of get in our minds and think, yes, it's been flooding for X amount of years, but now it's going to flood more frequently, which causes more problems going forward.
So, Brendan, all of this reporting is live now at our digital magazine, adaptflorida.org, along with some other important news about how the infrastructure bill will help Florida and other things that you've been reporting on. You have a lot planned in this space in the new year too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky enough at WJCT to hire some new people for the newsroom, which has freed me up to focus more on ADAPT. So it was, for the past year or so, one big story a month, and I'm starting to turn out more than that in a given month. So I'm working on one right now about a new program from JEA that helps large corporations get up to 100% of their energy from solar power. I'm meeting up with local photographer Doug Eng later today to learn about his work, which is on display at MoCA right now. So lots of stuff in the works, and hopefully even more exciting new things coming next year.
Check it out, everybody. It's adaptflorida.org. Adaptflorida.org. And if you sign up to our Jax Today newsletter, we'll send you ADAPT news and notes there, too. You can sign up at jaxtoday.org. Thank you both. Brendan Rivers, lead reporter at ADAPT, and Danielle Uliano, meteorologist at our partner, News4JAX. Have a great holiday, guys.
Thank you, Melissa.
Bye. Have a great holiday.
And up next, comedian Lewis Black is about to hit the stage at the Florida Theater this weekend. I spoke with Black about his comedy. We'll hear that conversation next.
Congaree and Penn, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpenn.com.
UF Health North, a comprehensive medical campus, including 24-hour emergency care for children and adults, a 92-bed hospital, outpatient surgery, rehabilitation, advanced imaging, and more. Learn more at north.ufhealthjax.org.
This holiday season, experience one of the greatest stories ever told, the musical masterpiece Handel's Messiah. Live in Jacoby Symphony Hall, December 18th and 19th. Join me, Courtney Lewis, 4 spectacular vocal soloists, the symphony chorus, and the world-class musicians of the Jacksonville Symphony for this captivating experience filled with dazzling arias and the awe-inspiring Hallelujah Chorus. Tickets at jacksymphony.org.
On the next Fresh Air, why childcare is the most broken business in America, with high costs for parents and providers. We'll talk with Claire Sudduth, a senior writer for Bloomberg Business Week, about her investigation into why childcare costs are so high and how they can be made more affordable. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
How widespread is child trafficking in the U.S.? The trial of Ghislaine Maxwell has put the spotlight back on the issue, but that's where some conspiracy theorists want it to be. We'll hear more and address ongoing fears that law enforcement often targets trafficking survivors rather than their abusers. That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, you've seen him on Comedy Central for years now. Guess what? It's your chance to see him live on stage this weekend. Comedian Lewis Black is performing Saturday night at the Florida Theater. I spoke with Black about getting back on the road, his thoughts on Florida politics, and more. Take a listen.
Lewis Black, good to talk to you. Thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure.
I'm excited to see that you're coming back to the Florida Theater. Now, now this tour is called the It Gets Better Every Day Tour. Now, Louis, I thought you were doing a tour called Off the Rails. So you've sort of changed a little bit thematically, I guess. So is this going to be a little more? No? Okay.
No. Here's the problem. Since we've been through this, this is the end of the It Gets Better Every Day tour, and then I will start the Off the Rails tour.
Okay, so do you feel that things are getting better, or are things off the rails, or both?
Oh no, it's we have unbelievably come through the worst time that in my lifetime. This is, the last number of years have been awful since this pandemic hit, and now we the people together. And have managed to only us have taken what was horrible and made it worse.
That's about right, isn't it? Especially here in Florida. What about Florida? Now, when you come to the Florida Theater, are we going to be featuring in your act? Are you going to dunk a little bit on some really interesting Florida things that have been happening in this pandemic?
No, I'm going to talk about how it's just great to be in a state where there's really no problems with this pandemic, that kind of made it through without any problems at all.
Yeah, except the 70,000 deaths.
Yeah, but that was because of ear infections, and it's unbelievable. I will, no doubt. I will no doubt it will be brought up. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I will say this, and I don't. And if that kind of and it will, and I won't talk about it unless I'm going to be funny about it. And if I'm not funny about it, I'm not going to do it. And if I am funny about it, and you can't handle that because you really think that nothing serious happened here, then you don't have to come. I don't sell a lot of tickets in Jacksonville anyway.
Really? I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't. And it really, I'm going to be honest. This time I just said I'm going to be honest about it. I've tried every time. I don't know what it'll take. I don't know if I need to give candy out. I have literally no idea.
Well, let's
about the same number.
Always the same number. Well, let's just remind everybody, and I'll remind them again in a minute, to get your tickets for Louis Black, December 18th at the Florida Theater, the It Gets Better Every Day tour. I didn't realize this, but you were the longest running contributor to The Daily Show on Comedy Central. I've been catching you on that show for years, and your bits there are always hilarious. So this is a chance to see you in person, including one of your signature moves when you're out on the road. The rant is due. Now, at the end of each performance, you deliver some audience-written rants submitted from fans. This sounds like a lot of fun and kind of a cathartic thing for both you and the audience.
Yes, and hopefully I'll be able to do that. I'm building up to this point because I've been off the road for a variety of reasons, and discovered that when you take 600 days off from your stand-up work, returning is more. It's like if somebody got called to run in the Olympics to run the mile, and they were called the day before, and they go do it.
Right.
So I kind of hit a wall and then had to kind of regroup. I'm really hoping to do it. If folks want, if I don't, I've done 60 podcasts. I call them rantcasts, where I've actually read rants that people wrote during the course of the year. I went all the ones we did last year on there, and if I'm feeling like I'm ready to do it, I will do it in Jacksonville. God knows we have enough rants to read, so it's more than possible, and it's live streamed throughout the world.
I know, which is so great. So this will be a great show. Blow off some steam, get your rants out, go see Louis Black, December 18th at the Florida Theater. Get your tickets online at the Florida Theater's website or wherever you like to get your tickets. It's going to be a great show. Saturday, 8 o'clock on the 18th. Lewis Black, I'm a fan, and I'm glad you're coming to town. Have a great show.
I really appreciate it. Thank you, Melissa.
And that's our show. Thanks so much for listening. And thanks to senior producer Heather Schatz, director Isabella De Silva, associate producer Catherine Hobbs, editorial director Jessica Palumbo, and news editor Randy Roguski. I'm Melissa Ross. We'll be back at 9 a.m. tomorrow for a look at the top stories of the year. Yeah, it's our final show of the year tomorrow, so don't miss it. This is First Coast Connect. Have a great day, everyone.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.